I never thought my wedding day would be the beginning of such a painful story. When my husband disappeared on our honeymoon, I was lost and devastated. It was 10 years of unanswered questions, sleepless nights, and a loneliness that consumed my soul. But what I discovered later was even more shocking. I was betrayed not only by the man who promised to love me, but also by my best friend. This is not just a story of abandonment. It is a story of secrets, lies, and a dark past that almost destroyed my life. If you have ever felt the pain of betrayal, if you have ever wondered why the people you love most turn their backs on you without explanation, you will understand what I experienced. I had to run for my life, and now I want to share this story with you so that you will never forget. Danger can be closer than we imagine. Before we dive into this breathtaking journey, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. The sound of the waves crashing on the sand was the soundtrack to the most anticipated moment of my life. I was 29 years old, dressed in white, barefoot, with the hem of my dress wet, and my feet sunk into the golden sand of the island where we had chosen to spend our honeymoon. He was beside me, with that serene smile, as if the world had stopped there, just for the two of us. I looked at him and thought, finally, this is it. My forever, my husband, my love, my best friend. We laughed, toasted with improvised glasses of champagne, and that night, we lay under the stars, swearing that nothing, absolutely nothing, could separate us. But fate, it doesn't care about promises. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of the sea filling the room. The sun was streaming through the white curtains, dancing on the wall as if everything were perfect. But his side of the bed was empty. At first, I thought he had gone for a walk, or to get coffee. I put his shirt on over my pajamas and went out onto the balcony. The beach was deserted. No footprints in the sand, no sign of him. My heart started racing, a strange feeling rising in my throat. I waited a few more minutes, then an hour. I started looking around the inn, asking the staff. Nothing. No one knew where he was. It was as if he had evaporated. Hours turned into days. I called my family, the local police, the consulate. No one knew anything. I felt like an actress in a bad movie, but it was my life. I spent days there, alone, waiting for news. Every time the phone rang, I held my breath. Every knock on the door made my body shiver. But he never came back. Not a letter, not a message, nothing. I came home like a ghost. The house where we planned to live, where we imagined children, became a graveyard of promises. Time passed, and the pain became routine. I was told to move on. I tried. I really tried. But something inside me refused to accept that he had simply disappeared without a reason. It had been 10 years. 10 long years where every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone was a cruel reminder that I was alone. And then, on that ordinary afternoon, as I was folding clothes in the laundry room, the phone rang. It was a voice I hadn't heard in a long time. "Hello, Marina. It's me, Fernanda, my best friend." Her voice was hesitant, as if time had taken away guilt she had never confessed. My heart raced, and I could barely breathe. She continued, without me being able to say anything. "I need to tell you something. It's about Rodrigo." His name, said by her, was like a punch in the stomach. I dropped my clothes, leaned against the wall, feeling my world spin. Rodrigo. He didn't disappear. He ran away. He ran away with me. The ground seemed to collapse beneath my feet. Fernanda, my childhood friend, the woman I considered a sister. "I know you must hate me now, but Marina, he didn't leave out of selfishness." Her voice was shaking, and then she said something that made my body freeze. "He ran away for something much bigger, something you never knew." The silence after those words was like an abyss that opened up before me. I trembled, holding the phone tightly, feeling the tears falling, mixed with a feeling of anger and confusion. Before I could say anything, she hung up. I stood there, alone, staring into space, with the phone still in my hand, trying to understand what she meant by something bigger. What truth was that? What had Rodrigo been hiding from me all these years? The answer to these questions was much worse than I could have imagined. I spent the entire night sitting on the living room floor, holding the phone as if it could give me answers. Her sentence, "He ran away for something much bigger," echoed in my head like an unbearable buzzing. Why would he do that? How could Fernanda have participated in such a betrayal? 10 years. 10 years living a lie. 10 years building a life on top of a void. Memories began to flood back to me in a haphazard way. The way he looked at me during our simple ceremony. The promise that we would be happy forever. The jokes between us and Fernanda. Our accomplice in so many stories. I relived each scene, each smile, and everything seemed to have a hidden meaning, as if I was the only one who didn't know something the whole time. The sun rose and I remained there, motionless, as if my body was no longer mine. In the afternoon, I finally found the courage to call Fernanda back. My hand was shaking so much that I could barely press the numbers. She answered on the third ring, her voice still trembling. "Marina, I thought you weren't going to call me. I want to know everything. Now." My voice was firm, but inside I was in pieces. "Why did he run away? What are you hiding from me?" She took a deep breath, as if deciding whether or not to open that door. "Rodrigo, he wasn't who you thought. Neither was I." Her voice broke. "On that honeymoon, he got a call. It was about his father, the past. I don't even know how to begin to explain, but Rodrigo's father." She stopped, and I heard a muffled sob on the other end of the line. Rodrigo's father was involved in some serious stuff, Marina. Things that could destroy someone's life. He was a lawyer for a criminal organization, and he had dangerous enemies. Rodrigo discovered that they were after him. And you. My breath hitched, and the world seemed to spin in slow motion. "Wait, what do you mean? What did I have to do with it?" "Everything, Marina. You were the perfect target. He knew that if they couldn't catch him, they would come after you. He had no choice. Running away was the only way out." I felt a pang in my chest, as if the air had been knocked out of me. "And you? Where do you fit into this?" Her silence was deafening. I loved him, Marina. Always." Her voice came out low, almost like a whisper. "He told me everything that night. He said he couldn't take you with him, that he had to disappear to protect you. I couldn't let him go alone." I gripped the couch, trying not to collapse. The pain was physical, sharp. "You guys were together this whole time?" My voice came out almost lifeless. "It wasn't what you think, Marina. It wasn't a fairy tale. He was broken, scared, and I stayed because I thought I could help. But the truth is that we lived in exile, hiding, changing names, cities, like two fugitives. There was no love, only fear." Her words were like knives tearing through my skin. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I wanted to understand, but everything was too confusing. And why now? Why after 10 years did you decide to tell me? She cried on the other side. "Because he's dying, Marina. Rodrigo, he doesn't have much time left, and he wants to see you. He needs to tell you the truth." I hung up the phone without saying anything. I sat there, staring into space, trying to process what I had just heard. My husband, the man I loved, had given up everything to protect me from a threat I didn't even know existed. And my best friend, she had been complicit in all of this. But what did he want to tell me now? What truth was this that needed to be revealed before it was too late? I knew that as much as it hurt, I needed to hear it. I needed to look into his eyes and understand why he left me behind. And deep down, something told me that the truth was even darker than I could have imagined. The next day dawned heavy, as if the air had become thicker, suffocating. I stood in front of the mirror, my eyes swollen from crying, trying to recognize the woman who was looking back at me. It was me, but it wasn't me anymore. I had aged 10 years in one night, carrying a pain that seemed impossible to bear. I knew what I needed to do, but I felt an indescribable fear. After all, how could I find someone who had spent a decade hiding from the world? I didn't wait. I called Fernanda again, my voice dry, my heart racing. She answered with a barely audible, "Hello," and before she could say anything, I blurted out, "Where is he?" She hesitated, then blurted out the answer as if it were a secret that could blow up the world. "He's in a clinic in the countryside. He's very sick, Marina. You have to go." Her words fell like a sentence. I hung up without answering, grabbed the car keys, and the moment I left the house, I felt my body shaking as if I were walking into a storm. I drove without stopping, my hands on the steering wheel, my eyes watering, my heart beating in my chest like an out-of-time drum. The road seemed endless, and with each kilometer I traveled, the pain mixed with a fury that burned inside me. When I finally arrived at the clinic, the sky was overcast, leaden gray. The building was old, with peeling walls and the smell of ether in the air. I walked in like a ghost, looking for him. The receptionist, upon seeing me, seemed to recognize the pain on my face, and without saying a word, simply pointed down the hallway to the palliative care ward. I walked to the room, my footsteps echoing on the cold floor. I stopped in front of the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. He was there. The man I loved, the man I had waited for 10 years, lay on a simple bed, pale, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a distant look in his eyes. His eyes turned to me, and for an instant, time seemed to stop. "Marina." His voice was a whisper, like the wind cutting through the skin. I stood still, unable to take a step. His image pierced me like a knife, the face I dreamed of every night, now haggard, destroyed. I wanted to scream, to punch him in the chest, to ask him why, but the silence felt heavier than any words. He coughed, trying to find strength. "I needed to protect you." My tears began to flow, but I could not move. He held out his hand, weak, trembling, and I, as if pulled by something invisible, approached, took that hand that had once held mine at the altar. He choked, his chest heaving. "They threatened to destroy you, Marina. Your family. I couldn't let that happen." His breathing became more labored, and he closed his eyes for a moment. I began to cry harder, begging him not to leave without telling me everything. "What is it, Rodrigo? Who are they? Who is behind this?" He opened his eyes, now teary, and in a thin voice he whispered, "It's not just about me, Marina. It's about what I discovered. He coughed, a dry, harsh cough that made him writhe in pain. I screamed for help, and nurses rushed in, telling me to move away, but I couldn't leave him. As they tried to stabilize him, he looked at me one last time, his eyes teary and desperate, and whispered, "Fernanda." But before I could finish, the monitor started beeping, and he passed out, his body shaking, the machines going crazy. I screamed. I begged. I tried to touch him, but I was pushed back as the doctors worked. I stood there, leaning against the wall, my body trembling, my heart racing, with a single certainty burning in my mind. Fernanda knew much more than she had told me, and I wouldn't rest until I found out the whole truth. I left that clinic like someone leaving a battlefield. His words stuck in my skin, burning me inside. Fernanda. What? What had she done? What did he want to say before he died? I was driving back home with my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on the road, but my thoughts so far away that I could barely see where I was going. The rain began to fall, thick, heavy, washing the windshield as if the world were crying along with me. I felt a lump in my throat, a boiling anger mixed with a sadness that was tearing me apart into pieces too small to be picked up. I got home, threw my bag on the floor, and before I could even think, I dialed Fernanda's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice tense, as if she had already expected the call. "Marina." "Shut up, Fernanda," I shouted, my voice cracking with anger. "I want to know now. Now! What were you hiding from me? What did Rodrigo try to tell me before he died?" She was silent, the kind of silence that crushes, that suffocates, that says more than any words. "He was going to tell me everything, Fernanda. Everything. My voice was shaking, and I felt so vulnerable, so broken. Why couldn't he? What have you hidden from me all these years? On the other end of the line, she started crying. I couldn't. Her voice was a whisper, drenched in guilt. Marina, he made me promise. He made me promise that I would never tell you. He wanted to protect you. Until the end. Protect from what, Fernanda? My voice came out sharp, cold, like a blade in my throat. From what? She took a deep breath, and her voice, when it came back, was filled with something I couldn't tell if it was fear or despair. Rodrigo, he discovered too much. He didn't just run away. He was forced to disappear. And I was in the middle of it all. I closed my eyes, trying to process what she was saying, my heart racing. Forced? By whom, Fernanda? By an organization, Marina. Powerful, dangerous people. They used his father to silence him. And when he tried to leave, they threatened you. The only way out was to disappear. Her voice broke, as if the weight of the world had come crashing down on top of her. I stayed, because I knew that if he was alone, he would go crazy. He never forgot you, Marina. Never. He talked about you every night. But he was so afraid. And you stayed there? As an accomplice? Her silence was the answer I didn't want to hear. I had no choice, she murmured. I thought I was helping. I thought I was saving him. But in the end, I think I was just destroying all three of us. My breathing became heavy, and a sob escaped. The pain felt so physical, so overwhelming, that I couldn't even breathe properly. What now? I asked, my voice barely audible. Now that he's dead? Is it over? She took a deep breath, and when she answered, her voice seemed to carry an omen. No, Marina, it's not over. Because there's someone who's still looking for you. And now that he's dead, they might come after you. I felt a shiver run up my spine, my skin freezing. Who, Fernanda? Who's behind me? Marina. Her voice almost disappeared. It's better if you don't know. Before I could scream, she hung up. I stood there, alone, in the middle of the room, with my cell phone in my hand, my heart beating so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't even feel them. A deep silence took over me, and in the depths of that silence, I realized a painful truth. I didn't know anything, and maybe it was better that way, but it was too late to turn back. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every word Fernanda said seemed to echo inside my head, as if it were an endless nightmare. I relived every moment, every detail. Rodrigo's look at our wedding ceremony, the laughter we shared with Fernanda, the plans, the hugs, and now, the lies. All those memories, which had once been my refuge, now turned into sharp knives cutting my soul. I found myself staring at my phone on the table, waiting for it to ring again, as if it could give me some kind of answer. But the silence was absolute. A silence so deep that it seemed to swallow the entire house. I sat on the living room floor, my back to the wall, hugging my legs, trying to figure out what to do. I knew I was in danger. Rodrigo died trying to protect me. But from whom? And why? Why, after so many years? Was there still a threat? It was then that an idea began to grow inside me. I needed to find Fernanda. I needed to look into her eyes and extract this truth, no matter how cruel it was. I was not going to live another day with this anguish. The next day, I went to the last address I had for her. It was a small, old house tucked away at the end of a narrow street, with a rusty gate and tall weeds taking over the garden. I rang the doorbell, my heart racing, and waited. No one answered. I played again, louder. "Fernanda," I shouted, my voice cracking. "I know you're there. Open that door for God's sake." Nothing. The silence was so thick it seemed to swallow me whole. I walked around the house, looking in the windows. They were all closed, the curtains drawn, as if no one had lived there for years. But something was wrong. There was a feeling, a chill, something that told me she was there, hiding. It was then that I saw it. In the mailbox, an envelope. My name written by hand, in shaky letters. I opened it with trembling hands. and inside was a sheet of paper, a hastily written note. If you're reading this, it's because I couldn't run away. They know. Marina, you need to leave. Now. Don't trust anyone. They're close. Closer than you think. I tried to protect you, but now it's too late. Forgive me. My hands started to sweat. My heart started racing, and I felt like the ground was collapsing beneath my feet. At that moment, a black car drove slowly down the street, its windows tinted, almost as if it was watching me. I knew. They were behind me, and there was nowhere left to run. I ran to the car, my heart beating wildly, my body shaking as if every cell was screaming in panic. Fernanda's note was still in my hands, and her words seemed to burn, branding my skin. They're close. Closer than you think. The black car turned the corner slowly, like a hungry animal circling its prey. I swallowed hard, trying to appear calm, but I knew they were watching me. My entire body was on alert, every muscle tense, and yet I tried to act as if nothing was happening. I got into my car, closed the door, and for a moment, I just stood there, staring straight ahead, trying to think of what to do, but the feeling of being watched was suffocating. I started the engine, started it, and drove off slowly. But just as I turned the corner, the black car sped up behind me. My stomach dropped. This was no coincidence. I floored the gas pedal, the car shaking, the engine screaming, but they didn't back down. They followed me like shadows, close behind, getting closer. My mind was spinning, searching for a way out. I couldn't go home. I couldn't go to the police. Who were they? What did they want from me? And most of all, what did Rodrigo know that was so dangerous that he would risk his own life? I turned down a narrow street, nearly hitting a dumpster, and tried to lose them. But they kept coming. I turned on my hazard lights, swerved down an alley, and still the black car appeared in the rearview mirror, relentless. Adrenaline was pumping through my veins, my chest heaving, my breath coming in short pants. Then I saw a supermarket parking lot, packed with cars, people coming and going. I pulled into the parking lot, parked between two cars, and turned off the engine. I crouched down, trying to control my tears, my whole body shaking. I looked in the rearview mirror. The black car drove slowly down the street, as if looking for something, or someone. I held my breath until the car was out of sight, but the tension didn't ease. I knew it wasn't over. I knew they were coming back. My hands were shaking so much that I could barely hold the phone. I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. But who? Fernanda? Missing? Rodrigo? Dead? Family? No. I couldn't involve anyone. I needed to understand what was going on. I needed to find out what Rodrigo knew. And deep down, something inside me told me that the answer was much closer than I thought. It was then that my cell phone vibrated. A message. No sender. Just 3 words. 3 words that chilled my blood. We are watching. I looked around, panic rising inside me, as if I was surrounded by invisible eyes. They knew where I was, and I understood that, from then on, my life would never be the same again. I sat in the car, my hands sweating, my chest heaving wildly, my phone still shaking in my hands with that message. We are watching you. It was as if the world had stopped, as if everything around me was frozen, while my mind raced everywhere at once. I tried to think, but I couldn't organize a single thought. How did they know where I was? How did they get my number? Who were they? The rain was starting to fall again, softly, almost like a whisper, but each drop felt like a drum beating against the car's bodywork. I closed my eyes for a second, trying to take a deep breath, trying to find some semblance of sanity. I needed to act. I needed to do something. And more than anything, I needed to understand what was hidden in this story. Then something came to mind. Rodrigo's old box of documents tucked away in the back of the closet, inside a suitcase that I had never had the courage to open. He had taken so little with him when we got married. But that suitcase he had always said was important. For years, I had avoided opening it. It was as if, somehow, I knew that there were secrets inside that could destroy everything I had. But now, I knew. It was time. I drove home, my stomach churning and my heart pounding. I locked the doors behind me, ran to my room, opened the closet, and pulled out my suitcase. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the latch. The suitcase creaked as it opened, as if it were preparing to spit out ancient ghosts. Inside, I found old papers, yellowed folders, some envelopes, and a notebook with a black cover, worn by time. The notebook had his name written on the first page, Rodrigo Azevedo, confidential. My hands were shaking as I flipped through the pages. And then, I began to read. Names, dates, places, money movements. One name repeated itself several times, underlined, with arrows around it. Orion Institute. With each line, my heart pounded. It was like opening the lid of a pressure cooker about to explode. He described a complex scheme involving money laundering, politicians, renowned doctors, and even members of the security forces. The Orion Institute was the center of it all, a front for clandestine experiments, trafficking of sensitive data, and something darker. It can't be, I murmured, feeling my stomach churn. On one of the pages, there was a highlighted paragraph. If something happens to me, they will go after her. They know Marina is my weakness. She can never know. I felt my world spin. I was the bargaining chip. I was the reason he ran. I was the target from the beginning. And Fernanda, she knew it all along. At the bottom of the suitcase, I found something that made me shudder. A photo, folded and hidden among the papers. It was a photo taken from afar, as if it had been taken by a hidden camera. Me, at the door of my old house, and behind me, Fernanda, looking at me with a look I couldn't decipher. Suddenly, a noise made me freeze. The sound of the front door handle slowly turning. Someone was trying to get in. I stared at the door, paralyzed. A chill ran down my spine, and my heart raced like a drum. The doorknob turned once more. I knew it. They were there, and I had no more time. The doorknob turned once more, and the sound echoed through the house like thunder, tearing through the dense silence. My body froze, my heart pounding so loudly it seemed to fill the entire room. I could hear my own rapid breathing, the wheezing sound escaping my dry throat. I looked at the door, my trembling hands holding Rodrigo's notebook, and it was at that moment that I understood. I needed to get out of there. Now. I stood up slowly, trying to control the panic that burned inside me, each step careful as if the floor would collapse at any moment. My eyes scanned the room, looking for an escape route. The window. It was the only way out. I ran to it, unlocked the latch and pushed hard, feeling the cold, wet wind of the rain hit my face. Behind me, I heard the sound of the door opening. "Marina!" A deep, sharp male voice invaded the room. I froze. "Marina, there's no point in running." His voice was calm, almost mocking, as if he already knew the game was won. I took a deep breath, gathered what little courage I had left, and jumped out the window, landing in the muddy yard, my knees scraping the stone. The pain was intense, but I didn't have time to think. I stumbled to my feet and ran toward the back gate. My hands were shaking so badly that it took me a while to open the padlock. I managed. I walked out into the street, breathing heavily, my clothes wet from the rain. The notebook clutched to my chest, as if it were the only thing keeping me alive. I looked around, searching for any sign of the black car, any threat hidden in the shadows. Nothing. I ran. I ran until my legs screamed in pain, until my lungs burned. I hid in an alley, leaning against the cold wall, trying to process what was happening. I knew I was being hunted. They knew everything about me. And now, they had entered my home. I looked at Rodrigo's notebook, and a highlighted sentence, written in shaky letters, seemed to scream at me. "If they find you, trust no one, not even those who claim to protect you." My head was spinning. Who were they? And why was the Orion Institute so important? I thought about Fernanda, and anger burned inside me like wildfire. She knew. She had always known. And I had to find her. But before that, I needed a plan. I needed to disappear, like Rodrigo. Make myself invisible. Then the phone vibrated again, and when I looked at the screen, I saw a new message. No sender. This time, it wasn't just 3 words. It was a long, dark sentence that made my body freeze. You can run, Marina. But you can't hide. We know where you are. We know what you know. And we'll silence you too. My hands were shaking. My breath was tight. And I felt like everything was crashing down on me. I knew. I was marked. And time was running out. I hung up the phone. My hands shaking so much they could barely hold the phone. I leaned against the cold wall of the alley, trying to control the tears that threatened to burst out. But it was useless. The tears fell, mixed with the rain, the sweat, the dirt. I was alone, completely alone. And now I knew. They wouldn't stop. They would hunt me until the end. Rodrigo's notebook was wet, the pages starting to smudge, but I held it so tightly that my fingers turned white. It was the only piece of paper I had, the only thing that could explain what was happening. I flipped through the pages, looking for answers, and then I found a loose sheet of paper, folded in half, as if it had been hidden there on purpose. It was a letter, written by Rodrigo, addressed to me. If you're reading this, it's because I couldn't come back. Marina, forgive me. I tried. I swear I tried. But they're stronger than me. Stronger than us. They're everywhere. In politics, in the police, in hospitals, the Orion Institute. It's not just a name. It's a network, a machine for destroying lives. And they've marked you, Marina. Not because you did anything, but because you're my weak point. They know that. They've always known. Fernanda, she was never just your friend. She was the bait. They put her in our lives, before we even met, to monitor me, to keep me under control. She was there at our graduation, at the engagement party, at our wedding. She knew everything, but deep down, I think she really fell in love with me. And that complicated everything. I had to run away with her because it was the only way to divert their attention. It was either that or you die. I know it doesn't justify anything, but I needed you to know. If you ever receive this letter, it means they failed to destroy me fast enough to prevent me from telling you. But now, they're coming after you. Don't trust anyone. Not Fernanda. Not the police. Not your friends. Marina, run. I felt a chill run through my chest, a despair so intense I could barely breathe. Everything made sense, and at the same time, nothing did. Fernanda was their pawn all along. Bait. And now, I was next. I was shaking when I heard footsteps approaching. Quick footsteps, wet from the rain. My body froze. I slowly turned my head, and when I looked at the end of the alley, I saw a silhouette standing under the yellow light of a street lamp. It was her, Fernanda, with an expression I had never seen before. A cold, empty look, devoid of any emotion. She was wet, her makeup was running, her hair was stuck to her face. But still, she looked like a statue, impenetrable, dark. Marina, she said, her voice low, almost like a whisper. I warned you. I took a step back, the notebook clutched to my chest. What do you want from me, Fernanda? Why now? Why after everything? She took a step forward, and when she spoke, the words came out slowly, like poison. Because the time has come. I felt my body freeze, my throat dry, my breath lacking. Time for what? Her gaze was so empty, so disturbing, that it made me shiver. Time for you to pay the price for loving the wrong man. The street fell silent, the rain falling like a curtain between us. I knew, in that instant, that the game had turned, and the real threat was always closer than I could have imagined. The world seemed to go silent, as if even the rain had stopped to hear what she had just said. Fernanda was there, just a few steps away from me, with that cold, empty look, as if I were just a disposable detail in a story that she had always controlled. Why? I whispered, my voice shaking. my whole body trembling. "Why did you do this to me?" She took a deep breath, as if she was tired of hiding, and the words came, sharp as blades. "Because he chose you. Because he always loved you, even when all he had to do was obey. I was put in your lives to watch, to manipulate, to keep him under control. But he fell in love, and it destroyed me. I had to choose, him or me." My throat tightened, and I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. The pain burned inside me, but now it was different. It wasn't just sadness, it was anger. Raw, sharp fury. "So you helped them hunt me?" My voice came out hoarse but firm. "I warned you, Marina." Her voice was cold, almost mechanical. "You could have left it alone. You could have forgotten. But you insisted, dug deep, messed with things you shouldn't have. Now they're coming. Not just for you, for everything." She took something out of her pocket, a cell phone, and showed me the screen. It was a video. I was in my house, opening my suitcase, reading my notebook. They had hidden cameras. They were watching. They always had been. "You've never been alone, Marina. Never." I took a step back, heart racing, but she stepped forward. "You have two options. Either come with me now and try to survive, or stay, and they will finish the job they started with Rodrigo." I looked at her, and in that instant, something inside me changed. I wasn't going to run away. Not anymore. With the notebook clutched to my chest, I ran as fast as I could down the alley, feeling her footsteps behind me. I turned the corner, running without looking back, the sound of the rain mixing with my heartbeat. A black car turned toward me, its headlights blinding, its engine roaring. I thought it was the end, but it wasn't. I threw myself to the side, slammed my body against a trash can, and the car drove right past. Fernanda shouted something, but I didn't stop. I kept running until my lungs burned, until my legs gave out, until my whole body screamed with exhaustion. I found a dark alley and hid, my hands covering my mouth to stifle my sobs. The notebook was still with me, tucked under my shirt. It was the only evidence, the only thing that could save me. And there, in the dark, alone, I understood. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. Rodrigo died trying to protect me, but now the fight was mine. They were still out there. The Orion Institute, Fernanda, the system. Everything was against me. But I also knew one thing. They may have the eyes, the cameras, the threats. But now, I had the answers. I had the truth. And no matter how much it cost me, I was going to make the world hear, even if it was the last thing I did.